Looking again at being clear, correct, concise, and creative, the 4 C's of journalism, we still have more to delve into. So let's hop right to it. Check out these sentences. What do you think is missing? My grandmother, a woman who is all about health, likes to eat banana bruises. This one-of-a-kind token is on sale. Have you heard about the new sales tax? I was driving down Bexar Bear on my way to Hawaii, but I got lost at the ocean. Trevor said I don't like tomatoes, but I don't understand why. Hopefully you noticed that it's punctuation. Sometimes it's badly punctuated, and that causes a little confusion. So I'm sure you're all familiar with periods. A period is the end of a thought. Question mark is a question, so you'll have rising inflection. With a comma, it's a slight pause, but the thought may continue. A colon is my favorite punctuation because I think of it as the ta-da. After a colon, you're going to hear a list of things or the explanation. Like in these examples. There are a few things I like about Texas. Ta-da! Weather, howdies, and pie. As you can see, I abbreviated that howdies wrong. It's not howdy is, and howdies don't own anything. One thing that bothers me about Greg, needs to be capitalized, ta-da! The attitude. It gives you a nice indication to pause and then give your answer. Hyphens connect closely related words. Part-time job, run-of-the-mill, 27. So it helps them flow as if they're one word. Double dashes show an abrupt stop in thinking, and sometimes they explain things within a sentence, so you can explain a sentence within itself with those double dashes. Ellipses are the 3 dots, and they show a trailing off of thought or a longer pause for thought. Parentheses, usually in broadcast, you don't read the parentheses. So it's good when you're practicing through out loud to see if those are parentheses that should be stated as if they were a double dash and just an explanation of part of a sentence, or if they shouldn't be stated to the listeners at all. If you do read this stuff in parentheses, you'll often end up repeating what you just said, because parentheses explain how to pronounce or say things. So looking back at these, my grandmother, comma, a woman who is all about health, comma, likes to eat banana bruises. It just helps you get the pause in the right spot and understand what's going on. This one-of-a-kind token is on sale. One-of-a-kind is stated as if it's one word, so it needs those dashes there. Have you heard about the new sales tax? Okay, I don't understand why this isn't a question. And if it needs to be a question, it needs a question mark at the end, because it could be said as a statement. Maybe somebody's accusing somebody of not hearing about the new sales tax. I was driving down Bexar Bear. This is not actually supposed to be Bexar Bear. Bexar is actually stated as bear. It's a French word. So these should be parentheses explaining the bear, and then you'll know how to pronounce Bexar, which is bear. On my way to Hawaii, ellipses kind of seems like they're having a deep thought about getting lost at the ocean, which is a little awkward. Maybe use some double dashes here or a comma. Trevor said I don't like tomatoes, but I don't understand why. This one's just confusing. Now, did Trevor say the speaker doesn't like tomatoes, or did Trevor say he doesn't like tomatoes? If Trevor said he doesn't like tomatoes, we need some quotation marks around this. But does Trevor finish his statement here, or does he finish it at the end of the sentence? Did Trevor say, I don't like tomatoes, but I don't understand why? Then Trevor wouldn't understand why he doesn't like tomatoes. Or did Trevor say, I don't like tomatoes, but the speaker doesn't understand why Trevor said he doesn't like tomatoes? Or did Trevor say the speaker doesn't like tomatoes and Trevor doesn't understand why? Just a little punctuation helps clear things up. As you can see, we have one of a kind here. We have some dashes. Good use of punctuation helps the meaning come across.
Douglas, would you please pass the catsup?
What?
The catsup.
You mean the ketchup?
Educated people pronounce it catsup.
How did they want me to pass it to them?
Fine, that's the way you're gonna be, then I'll do without.
Not gonna happen, old man.
My burger's getting cold. Just give me the ketchup.
Okay, it's called ketchup. Say it right and you can have it.
No.
Say it. Say it.
No, I will never say it. I'd rather die than say it.
Then she's staying over here. Me amo ketchup.
Fine. Then just say goodbye to these.
Why you gotta do that? All right, you want the catsup? You can have the catsup. Here. Good.
Thank you. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
Oh, is that enough?
Yes, that's enough. That's enough.
Then say it.
Say it. Say it. What? Say it. Hey, what? What's it called? Ketchup.
And that's how we learn.
I showed you that clip just to show you how irritating it can be when somebody doesn't say something the way you think it should be said. And that brings us over to the nitpicky part of how you should say things. As you know, we target parents, students, and teachers of Mesquite ISD as part of our listening group. And we have some math teachers among our listeners who are very particular about numbers. It's also important to state numbers in a way that listeners can understand when they hear them. For instance, you should round numbers. 126,748, can you process that in your mind without seeing the number? It's pretty hard. So if the exact number, doesn't matter, how about saying nearly 127,000, or just above 1,700, or about 6,000, or about 6,300, or 410,000 or so. Probably not or so, but about 410,000. Here's a picture of sheep, and I show you this to illustrate the complications of having and in numbers when it shouldn't be. For instance, listen to this. 126 sheep were herded into a meadow. The sick ones died. How many were left? Do you have your answer? Well, that would depend on what I said. Was I saying that 100 sheep and 20 of them were sick? Or was I saying 120 all sick? Or was I saying 120 sick and I wasn't telling you how many were sick? If I hadn't had that and in there, that would make it slightly less confusing. With years the same. I would never say I was born in 1986. So why are people saying 2007 when they're reporting our announcements? It should be 2007 because 2007 makes it sound like both the year 2000 and both the year 7. And here's the math teacher's problem with it. And in math communicates something. It communicates a decimal point. So this would be 12 3/10. So if and is supposed to communicate something, then it shouldn't be included when it's not supposed to communicate that very thing. Why does it matter that you say things right? Or that you type things right? Well, looking at this, 96K young daring children cross the Atlantic every day. This is supposed to be 96,000, but do many people know that K stands for 1,000? Or would they be sure in this instance? Probably not. 3,985, oops, I already messed up. 3,985,742 people from my hometown eat pork rinds. It should be maybe just under 4 million people from my hometown eat pork rinds. That's a big hometown, huh? Right here, at 11:42 a.m. on Saturday, I sang my first karaoke song. You see how AM doesn't sound very conversational? We'll get into details about that in just a minute. Carole King is one of my favorite artists. Yeah, it's cute to have that one there, but when it's a number lower than 10, it's just awkward to see it just sitting in the middle of a sentence. My boyfriend is 5 apostrophe. Now, do you guys know just right off the bat if that's 5 feet or 5 inches? His uncle is 4 2 apostrophes 3 apostrophe. Through the generations, they're getting taller. So yeah, one of them means feet, one of them means inches, and I may have typed it wrong. But it's better to just type out feet or inches so that people know exactly what they should say. I'd be pleased if I was 9 lbs lighter. Unless you want it to be stated as lbs, it should be spelled out as pounds. And here we have Super Bowl XLV. III is coming up. It's a cute logo for the event, but it's hard to read because people don't usually read Roman numerals, so it should be spelled out. 6:100 Americans prefer chicken to beef. This could be seen as a ratio, 6 out of 10, but it could also be misinterpreted some other way, so really spell the out of. If you want to earn big bucks on 09-1409, call 972-358-5650. This needs the dashes so that it can be easily read, and in this case it would be good to type September 14th, 2009, because just in case people who aren't familiar with the ends of the month as well, and like me, get August and September mixed up sometimes, it's good to have September typed. So here's the guide. If it's 1 through 11, write it as words, but 12 and above can be written as the numbers. Suffixes are okay, but remember to pronounce the TH. It should not be 12th, it should be 12th. Combine words and numerals for things larger than 1,000. So 126,748 is a lot easier to read than if you spelled it all out or if you had it combined together as a number. With symbols, always type out the symbols. Don't put the $sign in front of 17. Instead, put 17 and type dollars. Pounds, feet, the same thing. With fractions, write out how it should be said. Instead of 1.7, unless you want it to be said as 1.7, if you do, type the word point. But otherwise, 1 7/10, or 3/8, you don't want people saying 3/8, you want them saying 3/8. So type 3/8. With dates, street addresses, and telephone numbers, use hyphens to separate the information so it's easy to read. And remember, with telephone numbers, we like to group the last two numbers if possible. Two numbers is in 2 of the 4 digits, because it's a lot easier to remember 2 numbers than 4. It's a lot easier to remember 972-882-7590 than 972-882-7590. That gives people too much to have to remember. Or 214-965-2205 than not 214-965-2205. If you can group the letters like we can with 22, then do so. 0 versus O. You just heard me reading those zeros as zeros. People often take liberties with 0 and they use the word O when expressing it. But when we're talking about websites or anything people can go to on the computer, you can see there's both a 0 and an O on the keyboard. So it's important that you say 0 when you mean 0 so people don't type the wrong thing and go to the wrong place. Even on phones nowadays, it's easy to type an O or a 0. So in phone numbers, the same thing. You need to communicate 0. And the dictionary itself doesn't say O is a proper way to pronounce 0. So it should be 0 and always 0, unless indicated otherwise. AM and PM. I'm not sure of the reasoning behind this, but AM and PM should always be stated conversationally as morning, evening, night, not AM and PM. Possibly because it gets old, or possibly because if they only hear the M part, then they missed the A and the P and aren't really sure what time of the day it happens. Another thing that's confusing about it is 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock coming right after 11:59 a.m., people might think is AM, but it's actually PM because it's noon. So with 12, say noon or midnight. That's a good place to stop and review what we've already discussed. Numbers and punctuation.